Halifax isn't mentioned in the Old Testament. The next morning I watched Martha slip from bed, holding her auburn hair up behind her head, sleep creases along her shoulders. She took such good care of herself. She bicycled 10 miles every Saturday morning, unless weather or some urgency at work prohibited. She had slim hips and an ever so slightly noticeable, and to me endearing, oddly syncopated walk from a childhood injury. She only had a bathtub, no shower, and took quick morning baths, but in the evening could linger in the tub a long time, adding hot water, listening to the radio. There was nothing she liked more than to have a glass of wine delivered to her in the bathtub, to step from the bath, slip on her robe, and have dinner waiting on the kitchen table. This morning she teased me by pulling back the bedclothes and lying down atop me, breasts pressed to my back. She kissed both of my ears, then said, "Oops, time to go." She put on her street clothes and left the apartment. I got up from bed and turned off the radio. Martha had left a cup of coffee with a book set over it to keep the coffee warm. The book was The Journals of Susanna Moody, a collection of poems by Margaret Atwood. At John W. Dewell bookseller on Barrington Street, she had said to me at the cash register, "That's right, I'm a detective who reads poetry. By the way, thanks for the employee discount. Every little bit helps." Setting the book on the table, I drank the coffee and thought back to my mother's interrogation. When I'd asked Martha if I could watch and listen through the one-way glass, she'd said, "Against policy, but sure. Just don't let the two other detectives give you any grief. If they snap at you, snap right back. Just if they ask, say Detective Crauchet said it was okay to be there." During the interrogation, Martha couldn't help but glance at the window now and then. I stood in the viewing room with Detective Tides and Detective Hodgson. Naturally, Martha had mentioned their names, but I hadn't met them before. I would guess that they were both in their early 50s. Tides was trim, about 5'9", with short, entirely white hair and wore glasses with owl-eyed black frames. He had an indoor pallor, a tight-lipped smile. Then there was Detective Hodgson. He had thinning black hair, slicked back. You could see the comb tracks. He was an inch or so taller than Tides and far more wound up. Fidgety and impatient, he habitually snapped his fingers as if time itself wasn't passing at an acceptable rate. He was out of shape, had an insomniac's eyes, and within 1 minute exhibited 10 different expressions of glumness. Tides wore a pinstripe suit, like he had a formal engagement later and was already dressed for it. Hodgson's suit was off the rack, and his white shirt was a size too small, at least around the stomach. Once, when he unbuttoned his jacket as if to let air circulate, I noticed a small Rorschach test of coffee splattered on his shirt just above the pocket. "In the interrogation room," Martha told me, "they like to alternate between bad cop and worse cop. That's why I was glad I was the one in there with your mother. Tides and Hodgson don't know a thing about auctions anyway. Believe me, they couldn't care less. They just think, hoity-toity folks with too much money just for things to put on their walls." Martha had also informed me that Hodgson and Tides had worked together for 14 years. She had been their colleague for 5. 10 or so minutes into the interrogation, Hodgson said, "Detective Crauchet is using some gentle tactics, you ask me. Maybe it's a woman-to-woman thing. Me? I'd just say, 'Hey, dipshit, why'd you want to go and attack those American war heroes in that photograph like you did?'" "Look how gussied up the loon is," Tides said, of course referring to my mother. "Hair all neatly coiffed, that silk scarf. Japanese or Chinese looking, that scarf, don't you think? Going by the pattern, that scarf. Slacks, blouse, shoes, all not cheap. Nicely turned out. She's got to be what, maybe 55, 60? The point is, she got dressed for the occasion. I'd have to call that premeditated. Probably been some time since she's had a night on the town, eh?" Hodgson said, "Can't blame her for wanting to escape the loony bin for a few hours." "Rest hospital," I said. Hodgson turned to me and said, "And you're who again? I forget." "Name's Jacob Rigoleta," Tides said. "That's his mother in there, Nora Rigoleta." "Rest hospital, loony bin, call it what you like, Jake," Hodgson said. "Hope you don't mind me using the familiar, Jake. I'm a familiar sort of fellow." "Shh, hear that?" Tides said. "Just now she called it my despised photograph. Now that's personal. That's very personal. What's the story with that, do you suppose?" "The story?" Hodgson said. "What is this, English literature class? The story? Leave that to the shrinks. Willful destruction of private property is what